Okay, welcome to my whole grains cooking class. So in the cooking class this evening, we're going to make millet sweet potato veggie burgers, and we're going to make a brown rice ginger stir fry. Let's start cooking the millet for the millet sweet potatoes, sweet potato burgers. Who here has had millet before? A few people, right? This is what it is. This is what it looks like. Have you seen this before?
Birdseed.
Birdseed. Yeah, that's where most people have seen it for. They put it in birdseed. Millet is in a category of food called whole grains, which is what the cooking class is all about. Whole grains have been eaten since the beginning of our human existence, practically. All of our ancient ancestors, no matter where you came from, had a diet based in whole grains. Okay? For instance, millet, and this is documented, it could go even further back, not documented, but millet has been eaten since 2800 BC. So that's like 5,000 years they've been eating millet. It is one of the oldest whole grains. It is older than rice, it's older than barley, it's older than wheat, it's older than rye. This whole grain in particular, millet, is the easiest whole grain to digest. Okay? So if anybody has digestive issues or anything like that, millet is the whole grain to start with. The easiest whole grain to digest. It is very high in calcium, very high in iron. It also contains B vitamins. Millet is the main food of the Hinza people. Hinza people are people that lived a really long, long time. And this is the food that they ate, was the millet. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about millet in a minute, but let's get it cooking first. So get yourself a pot. Now, your recipe calls for a half a cup of millet, 1 cup of water. Guess what? I'm going to double this recipe so that we have enough veggie burgers for everybody. So I am starting with 1 cup of millet, and I'm going to start with 2 cups of water. The first step, what you do, is you put the whole grain in the pot, and you add the water, and then you put it on the burner at a high temperature, and you bring it to a boil. Let's do that. Now you're going to ask me, well, why didn't you wash the millet? No, I do not wash my millet. Some people do wash their millet. I don't. I find it an unnecessary step. And millet is a very small whole grain, so sometimes it falls through the strainer. And I've just, through 22 years of teaching and cooking, I just don't find. You wash whole grains when they seem to have dust in them, and you can see the water is dirty. Millet has never been dirty all the time that I've been cooking it. So I do not wash the millet. So here is how you are going to cook whole grains. It's kind of a technique. They all are cooked this way. They get cooked for different amounts of times, but they get cooked the same way. You put the whole grain in the pot, you put the water in the pot, you put it on the stove at the highest temperature and bring it to a boil. That's called an open boil because the lid is off of the pot. That helps to start the cooking process. It starts to open up the grain, so the grain is more digestible when you eventually eat it. So it's called open boil. You open boil the millet for approximately a minute or 2. You don't need to let it go much further than that. And then you put the temperature of your stove to the lowest possible temperature. Put a lid on the pot and let it cook for the appropriate amount of time. Millet is a quick cooking brain. Quick cooking brain. It's a quick cooking grain. It cooks for approximately 20 minutes, sometimes 25, depending on the temperature of your stove. All stoves are different, and they all have different temperatures, so you have to just work with it and see where your stove is at. Okay? Now, after 20 minutes, the water should all have been absorbed by the millet, and your millet should be nice and soft and creamy. That means it's done. If there's still water in there, then let's let it go for 25 minutes. It's not done cooking. Now, if within 10 minutes or 15 minutes, all the water's dried up and you burn your millet, then the heat on your stove is just too high. And you've got to get the heat on the stove lower so that all the water doesn't get absorbed that quick. Okay? Now, millet, when it's cooked, is nice and creamy. I had a student one time who said, I don't like millet. Oh, why don't you like millet? It's crunchy. Millet should not be crunchy. Once it's cooked, it's absorbed all that water and it becomes creamy, which is why millet is a great whole grain to use in applications such as making veggie burgers because it's going to hold together, it's nice and creamy. Millet is great for casseroles because it's creamy. It makes excellent soups because you put it in there, it makes like a nice creamy thick soup for you. That's where millet is fantastic. Okay? Millet also feeds and nurtures your spleen, pancreas, and stomach. These are your main digestive organs in the middle of your body. These are the organs that help you deal with stress. So when you get stressed out, the middle of your body kind of goes, oh, I'm so stressed out. It gets like uptight. But when you eat nice creamy millet, it goes inside of you, and instead of being uptight and stressed out, it just relaxes you. It makes you feel better. So we consider millet our anti-stress grain. So if you eat millet on a regular basis, you strengthen your body so that you can fight off stress. And who doesn't have stress in their life, right? So we're waiting for this millet to come up to boil, right? Let's talk a little bit more about whole grains. As I mentioned, all of your ancient ancestors, no matter where you came from, had a diet based in whole grains. Whole grains are what are called complex carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates get digested very slowly. They release glucose very slowly into your system. So it gives you long, sustainable energy to last throughout the day. So our ancestors who had a diet based around whole grains, they needed a lot of long, sustainable energy, right? Because they had to walk wherever they wanted to go. They had to, do all kinds of work and everything. So they had long, sustainable energy. The majority of their diet was whole grains. That is what's missing in the average American diet. Most people eat, meat and vegetables and bread. There's no complex carbohydrates. There's no whole grains in that diet whatsoever, which is why everybody is so tired and exhausted and doesn't have any energy. Because you need to get your energy from whole grains, complex carbohydrates. Okay? Again, they get digested very slowly. Now, the opposite of that is simple carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates, no. Those are not good for you. They take healthy, wonderful whole grains and they refine and process them. They take the outer bran off. They take the fiber out, which is all the vitamins and minerals and nutrients. And what's left is empty calories, like white bread, white rice. Spikes your blood sugar level, gets digested really, really quick, and is terrible for you, right? So if you switch over to eating the whole grains, it's going to give you energy, long, sustainable energy to last throughout the day. It's going to stabilize your blood sugar level. Different whole grains have different vitamins and minerals. Did I mention that millet has a wide variety of B vitamins in it? B vitamins are really good because when you get stressed out, you get depleted B vitamins, so you need those back in there. Millet is also high in phosphorus. It is 100% gluten-free. So it's just boiling. You can see it in the mirror. Is that cool? You can see it in the mirror. So it's just boiling. That's it. Now, so I'm going to reduce this to the lowest possible temperature. And this is the first time I've ever cooked here, so I've never used the stove before. So I am going to babysit it and check on it. But if you're at home and you know your stove, like at home when I'm cooking and I know my stove, I would put that millet on and walk away from it for 20 minutes and I'd come back and I know it would be perfect. But it's an unfamiliar stove, so I will be checking it just to make sure that the temperature is correct, right? All right, let's go on a little break while the millet cooks.